just within half an hour. How did you manage to get him to call off his wedding? I just don't know. How am I still continuing this friendship with you? Am I the only one around you who was lucky to save a marriage? Asked Shaker. Sanjay smiled and said, if you start to ill treat my sister, in no time I will get my sister to divorce you. Shaker gave him a confused look and said, idiot, you are an only child, and I'm not a fan of multiple marriages, and I love my wife. Sanjay chuckled and replied, I mentioned your wife as my sister. Shaker asked, will you get us both divorced in any circumstances? Sanjay paused his walking for a while and turned to face Shaker and said, of course, if you both start to lose both of your happiness in the name of marriage, then I would. Shaker couldn't resist but punched Sanjay's chest and said, you are really too much. But I think this friendship can take certain types of too much too. And smiled. Sanjay asked, how is your friend Ram? Shaker gestured with his hands to Sanjay as if stopping him from asking the question. Still, Sanjay insisted and he said, yeah, Ram is extremely fine, but I cannot enter his house right now. Sanjay inquired, why? Shaker replied, thanks to you. Sanjay continued, oh, just because their son called off his wedding because of you, and smiled. Shaker caught Sanjay's ear and asked, because of me or because of a person who I consider as a friend and looks exactly like you? Sanjay smiled and said, but I saved your friend's whole life. And asked, can you leave my ears for God's sake? If not, I will punch you back. Shaker removed his hands and smiled, saying, save your energy. Shaker asked, why did you even do so? It was just half an hour that I left you both talking. How did you manage to do it? Sanjay smiled and said, I just asked some questions. Your friend got all his answers, it seems. That's why he got saved. Shaker said, whatever it is, one day it's going to backfire. Sanjay asked, how's that going to happen? Shaker continued, I don't know the exact day, time of that beautiful event, at least according to me, but definitely it is going to unfold in your life, sooner or later. Sanjay said, save your energy. Shaker stopped his walk and checked the time. It's already 7. He asked Sanjay to wait for him in the nearby coffee shop. Sanjay gestured why in between sips from his water bottle. Shaker asked Sanjay, you remember the uncle living on the street? To which Sanjay nodded. Shaker continued, he asked me to visit him today, just an hour maximum. I'll be right back. Sanjay playfully punched him in the stomach and said, okay. He closed his water bottle, put on his headset, and increased the volume of the music. The Japanese flute music filled his ears, immersing him in a world where every step towards the coffee shop is aligned with the music. The coffee shop is situated along the roadside, targeting customers like travelers, joggers, or even who voluntarily chooses this coffee shop as a place for get-togethers or meetings due to its low crowd. Two sides of the building are glass encased, making it cozy and well lit. Chimes inside at various places add music to the silence whenever they are tickled by the air. Sanjay walked into it, smiled at the waiter, and ordered his drink. He settled near the window and became fully absorbed in the beauty of Japanese music while gazing out at the trees, birds, and contemplating Shaker's words. One day it's going to backfire. Sanjay's mind started to ponder. What did he mean by that? How can he say such a thing? Almost like a curse to me. Here I am saving the country's judiciary by preventing a certain wedding that would have burdened the legal system. Suddenly his mind asked, does this mean I somehow took away potential cases from the hands of aspiring lawyers who could have benefited from them? Sanjay smiled at his own idea and mumbled, well, everything in life happens for a reason. If I can't answer what and why right now, I'll eventually find out sooner or later. All I have is the present moment, so I better listen to my heart. The waiter arrived with the drink and they exchanged smiles. Suddenly, he felt the urge to fully enjoy the natural view outside. After he stopped his music, his ears were greeted by the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves. The coffee shop had a few guests here and there, but it isn't crowded. Sanjay closed his eyes, taking in the warm aroma of coffee that filled his nostrils. He took a sip, energizing his taste buds, and then turned to look outside the window. There are still a bunch of sparrows dancing in the branches of trees, some flying in different directions and some in pairs. Sanjay smiled as he randomly glanced at different people in coffee shop. Staffs are busy, serving with sweet smiles on their faces. Suddenly, the voice of an elderly woman caught his ears, and he felt as though the entire coffee shop is filled with people. To his surprise, there aren't many patrons, but the glass door opened, and a woman in her 50s entered, short and dressed in sari with her hair in a bun. She was followed by a man in his 20s wearing t-shirt and jeans, another woman in her 20s as well. Sanjay felt an urge to stop that woman in her 50s from entering the cafe and disturbing the elegant silence that prevailed. However, he knew he is in no position to do so, so he controlled his emotions. The woman and her companions reached a table near Sanjay, opting for a four-seater one close to him. The lady in her 50s took a seat along with the man, and the other woman, who appeared more cultured, sat opposite them. Sanjay felt an urgency to fill his ears with music. He is about to switch on the music. His ears were filled with the words. My son loves latte, so you better drink the same and get used to it. Sanjay began to observe the scene, realizing that it wasn't a typical mother with her two children, but rather a mother son combination meeting a potential bride. The unfolding scene and the woman's words gave Sanjay the sense that the judiciary system is crying out to him to intervene once again. He smiled and began sipping his coffee while noting the details that supported his instincts. The lady signaled the waiter to bring three lattes. She continued, are you a vegetarian? What's your favorite item? The young woman answered, I'm not a vegetarian. I love chicken very much. And then stopped speaking. Sanjay shifted his attention to the lady, who seemed a bit annoyed, as indicated by her smile. Still, she continued, my family is vegetarian, and our daughter in law needs to be the one. The young woman didn't deny it, but didn't offer much of a response either. The waiter arrived with the drinks, served them, and left. The young woman observed the drinks, but didn't touch hers, while the mother and the son started to enjoy their lattes. The young woman attempted to ask the man some questions, but he is too engrossed in his latte and asked his mother, should we order another one, Mom? Sanjay smiled and wondered, why does this woman put herself into this endless trouble? He tried to read the young woman, sensing the need for the nudge from him to prevent this nonsense person from entering her life. She appeared to be around 5'7", dressed in a light green kurta set with a flagged dupatta. She wore a small chain around her neck with a locket, possibly adorned with a white stone, perhaps a diamond. Her long, straight hair is in a ponytail, and her eyes sparkled with intelligence, but also a hint of uneasiness, likely due to the presence of the mother and son. Her bangles are metallic, with beads that occasionally produced soft sounds. She sat there more like a robot than a human, as if someone had programmed her with no natural facial expressions. Her face clearly conveyed her displeasure towards the mother and son, but her intelligence is working hard to conceal it. Sanjay wondered, why does this woman endure all this torture? Sanjay's thoughts are interrupted by the man, who suddenly said, your salary after marriage needs to be credited to my bank account, and added, we are husband and wife, and I can certainly provide you with monthly allowances, but I cannot allow you to spend your money on your family. and smiled. Sanjay felt a clear urge to punch the man on his face and to ask him, who are you to give her a monthly allowance when you are planning to loot hers? Why don't you credit your monthly salary to hers to demonstrate your sincerity as a husband? But instead, he sighed. Sanjay felt that he had to take that innocent young woman out and save her from this catastrophe as she is about to land herself otherwise. However, the circumstances is not right at the moment. So he waited patiently and the time is now exactly 7:30. The woman continued her son's words and said, after marriage, this is your family, right? And smiled with a grin that could poison the mood of 20 people at that very moment. Then she continued, you have to change your dressing style. I love to see you in sari. The young woman grabbed the edge of the table and stared at the man, perhaps to gauge his reaction. But he responded, yeah, mom, as you love it, I love it too. It's our culture. The young woman still maintained a smile, possibly forced at this moment. The lady continued, your hair needs to be trimmed to half. It's really tiresome to see this long hair. Sanjay thought, of course, it would be tough for you to see someone with long hair when yours is just a quarter of a quarter compared to it. Why don't you guys see the human being inside her? She is not a robot that you can control or program. Sanjay couldn't take it anymore and he sincerely wished for a chance to speak to her and save her. Suddenly, her phone rang and she excused herself under the pretext of attending the call. She went outside and Sanjay took his water bottle and headset. While turning to leave, he overheard the man telling his mom that she wasn't speaking much, to which the mother responded, it's all right. Let's demand more money from her parents. The man smiled and nodded. Sanjay somehow controlled his emotions and left the cafe. He opened the glass door and the chimes touched the wind, producing sounds. As he turned to his left, he saw the young woman standing near the tree and engaged in a serious conversation with someone. Sanjay waited patiently. After her call ended, she turned back and walked towards the cafe, but Sanjay stopped her in between. She gave Sanjay a confused look, but he said, sorry to interrupt you, but I cannot help it. If you say yes to this proposal, it means you are going to lose yourself. That person cannot say no to his mom, and he saved all those no's for these all years. Maybe to tell his wife, do you want to be that? She tried to say something, but Sanjay gestured with his hands as if to allow him to continue. The young woman said nothing, seemingly allowing him to continue. Sanjay said, there is nothing wrong with being a non-veg lover. Again, the woman seemed like she wanted to speak, but he continued with the same gesture towards her and said, I mean your love for chicken. The young woman is now suppressing her smile, but Sanjay said, for real affection, you can change as you wish. But don't spoil your life with such fake people. They are clearly after your money. I overheard them saying they are going to demand more money from your parents. It's really bad. I hope you deserve someone better. The young woman asked, what qualities should I look for in a person, Mr. Stranger? Sanjay couldn't help but smile and said, look for someone who could protect you as well as let you spread your wings and fly. And that person who can see a human being in you rather than your wealth at the first place. The young woman suddenly took out her mobile and texted something. She asked Sanjay to wait for 5 minutes. Sanjay felt happiness as if the judiciary system of the country is smiling at him for his kindness. However, he still felt uneasy that those cheap minded people didn't receive any punishment. At least she should have poured that latte on them, mumbled Sanjay. Suddenly, the mother and son rushed out of the coffee shop. When Sanjay turned back, he saw the young woman standing near the glass door with an empty coffee cup. When he looked in the direction of a mother and son, both are kind of drenched in latte. Sanjay somehow suppressed his laughter but couldn't entirely. On seeing this, some other people about to enter the coffee shop also smiled. The mother and son felt embarrassed and rushed towards their car. The lady didn't fail to put a parting shot on this brave girl, saying, You are going to be single forever in your life. Sanjay couldn't stop himself from saying, She won't be. Save your energy. And once these words were out, he thought, Why in the world did I say something like that? Sanjay saw the young woman and her eyes are now surely sparkling with joy. She paid for the coffee and walked towards him. Thank you, Mr. Stranger, she said. Sanjay smiled and said, Sanjay is better. The young woman smiled at his words and said, I'm Dhanya. Sanjay nodded and asked, Why did you even entertain such a proposal? You didn't seem to be enjoying it the whole time. Dhanya smiled and asked him back, Is it right to eavesdrop on strangers with great concentration? Sanjay smiled and said, It depends. If the intention is to save a victim from the wrong marriage on behalf of life, everything is fair. Dhanya smiled and said, Anyways, thank you. Dhanya continued, No one really tried to understand me or my views, but you, even being a stranger, took the initiative to stop me from this kind of marriage. Sanjay asked, If not you, then who arranged this meeting for you? Dhanya smiled and said, My paternal aunt. And her influence on my father denied my rights as an individual, and I was forced to come here. Sanjay asked once again, but with a questioning look. If I had not initiated to nudge you, would you have said yes? Dhanya smiled and said, No, I definitely wouldn't become their puppet. Sanjay smiled and asked, Why did you pour latte over them just now when there were plenty of situations before? They were actually pushing their ideas onto you. What happened? Dhanya smiled and said, When I got back inside, the mother and son were a bit serious and started questioning me about why it took me so long to end a call. Then they began to cook up a story and criticize my moral character, manners, and what not, everything on and on. Then they finally said that I took a fancy to say no just to prove that I'm strong. But in reality, I did nothing like that. Sanjay nodded in agreement. Danya continued. Then they started to talk ill about my parents and why they hadn't trained me to say yes to the in laws and the husband. Then they told me why don't I pour that latte on them so that I could be strong. She told me that in the heat of the moment, but I felt someone mumbled in my ears to do the same, and I, in no time, did it. And said, Maybe you're right. Sometimes saying yes also sounds great. And yes, they rushed out. Dhanya stopped her words with a sigh. Sanjay couldn't stop himself from laughing, and they both laughed together. Somehow he managed to say the words. Actually, I was really thinking, why don't you at least pour latte onto them? Maybe you heard my thoughts. And continued laughing. Dhanya smiled and said, Thank you, once again. Suddenly, another male voice caught her ears, asking, What's the thanks for? When both turned in the direction of that voice, Sanjay smiled. It is none other than Shekhar. Sanjay introduced each other. Shekhar sighed and asked, So now you are the recent victim he saved. And then told her all the details of Sanjay's principle of saving the judiciary system from the unwanted burdens. Suddenly, the taxi stopped in front of them. Sanjay pointed at it and asked Danya, Did you call it? Danya nodded and once again thanked Sanjay. She said goodbye to both of them, got into the white taxi, and the car started moving slowly due to a truck in front of it. She wondered why her paternal aunt had not brought someone like Sanjay. Suddenly, the thought struck her heart. Why someone like Sanjay? Why not him? She asked the driver to stop the car, got out, and started running back towards the cafe. She felt a sense of loss when Sanjay is nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, both Sanjay and Shekhar appeared from the other side of the street. Danya could not suppress her happiness. Sanjay, upon seeing her, is quite surprised and asked, Did you miss anything inside? Should I help you look for it? Danya didn't know how to react to this question, but managed to say, If I hadn't written now, maybe Maybe I would have missed it. Sanjay and Shekhar exchanged glances with each other. Shekhar asked, Is it diamond? Danya smiled and asked Shekhar, It's your friend's uncle? Before both of them could comprehend her answer and the reason for this question, she already felt the heat rising in her neck, her heart racing. Finally, Shekhar said, Yes, he is, because he doesn't believe in a life partner that is born exactly to match his nature. Danya finally took a breath of relief and asked Sanjay, Why do you think so, as no one is born for you? Sanjay said, None really matched my vibe before, and smiled. Danya gestured towards the cafe and said, I somehow matched your wish to pour latte over that mother and son. I did that unknowingly about your intention to do so. Did that count? Shekhar's eyes widened and he asked, What? Did you pour latte on them? Danya smiled and looked at Sanjay expectantly. However, Sanjay thought for a while and said, Maybe a coincidence. Shekhar interrupted him and asked, When did you start believing in coincidences? Don't give me such heart attacks. But Sanjay gestured to him to stop by squinting at him. Danya noticed this and felt like crying, but still controlled her emotions. She said, If you don't like me, then it's okay, but I need a reason. Sanjay gave her a confused look. Danya continued asking, When that lady cursed me for being single lifelong, why did you speak up for me? Sanjay took a deep breath and That's the helping tendency, said Sanjay. His thoughts were already telling him no, but he managed to keep his face cool. His heart started to prick him a bit, and he couldn't understand why he had said what he did. Don't you think life is trying to tell something to us? Asked Danya. Sanjay gestured no, but his heart is aching, and all this is happening for the first time. He didn't allow Danya to see his confusion. Danya then looked up at the sky for a while, perhaps to organize her words, and then asked Sanjay for his mobile number. Sanjay said, No, I cannot give my number to a stranger. As you said, if life is really bringing us together, then if we meet for the second time after leaving here, I would believe. Danya's face lit up with happiness and she said, It already happened. Sanjay realized that she had indeed returned after leaving the place. He couldn't help but smile. He wondered, Is this woman very important to me? The sudden wind made the chimes produce music, and Sanjay opened his mouth in surprise. As if reading his thoughts, Danya said, Some answers from life could be as sweet as the sounds of these chimes. Sanjay smiled, feeling that life is speaking to him, and agreed to her demand. And both exchanged their numbers. Danya, now happy, went back to taxi and left the place. Shekhar finally sighed and said, October 27, 2023, morning 8:30. Sanjay looked at him with an confusion and Shekhar continued, I told you before that your efforts to save the judiciary from the burdens of divorce cases could backfire. Now I know the exact date and time of it. It's October 27, 2023 and morning 8:30. Sanjay couldn't believe that within a few hours his life had acquired another character. Someone very new and also now in her efforts to interpret the language of life. He couldn't digest all these scripts of life. Shekhar pulled Sanjay to walk faster because he needed to share this interesting tale with his wife. Sanjay just smiled but wondered why his heart is now at peace and as well very happy. And he questioned himself, Why? Why? Suddenly, his thoughts made him realize that all answers would eventually be revealed. He smiled and wondered where we would meet tomorrow. The end. So, friends, I really hope you all enjoyed the story very much. So, friends, always be very cautious before translating life's messages to you. Life may speak to each and every one of us through different forms. At times, it may use some new persons as a medium to talk to us. So, always listen to life. and always take wise decisions. So, friends, give it a thought. By telling you all this, your moon friend is vanishing with a very last question to you guys. Friends,